Hello, all you CPT players out there. For episode number 11, we've got a special treat for you. If you haven't read the description already before pushing play, I just want to let you know that this isn't one of our normal episodes where we just dive into one topic. This is actually the first thing that Jeremiah and I ever recorded. We're talking back late spring, and we had just gotten all of our equipment. The lovely curtains had just arrived, and we decided just to do an episode where we talk about ourselves and how we came to start the Conspiracy Playtime podcast. It's a lot of us finding our groove. I still didn't know how to use a microphone. Pardon me for that. I tried to clean it up in the editing as much as possible. Jeremiah kept his headphones on, and we were still using iMovie. So if you think that he resembles the cadence of Juliette Lewis, that is why. For the first hour or so of the show, we'll be talking about ourselves, and then we will talk about conspiracy theories versus conspiracies and just kind of some history into that. Then we kind of finish out with a list of 11 random questions that Jeremiah and I go through. To those of you who are just interested in the meat, you don't care so much about what we're putting into the gravy, you might want to skip this episode. But if not, hang out with us. Listen to some groovy tunes. 11 is a special number. So we hope you enjoy this. Thanks for listening and or watching, and we love you.
Welcome to Conspiracy Playtime Podcast.
Some people actually believe that the world is run by shape-shifting alien reptiles.
No fucking way.
I think just the whole podcast is rated R.
Will there be titty?
What the fuck is a conspiracy theory?
When two separate events occur simultaneously pertaining to the same object of inquiry, we must always pay strict attention.
The only Jewish conspiracy there is that I'm circumcised.
And there's this guy from the CIA, and he's creeping around Laurel Canyon.
So anyone at any given time could be infected, don't even know it, and feel perfectly well. That's really the nature of science.
Come on, man. That's like saying you, before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
We need to get the fuck out of here!
Fixing that testing regime, we need to have that in place before we move to that next phase.
I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I strongly believe that.
I do as well.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
The FBI killed Martin Luther King.
It's fucking making sense to me now.
How many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
If our own government was responsible for the deaths of almost 100,000 people, would you really want to know?
Yeah.
Roll up your sleeves, take your shot, wear your mask, and please stay safe out there.
Cheers to the beginning of the end.
This episode is sponsored by Ace Cider.
Hopefully someday, right?
I don't know. They're a little big.
So how do we want to start this thing? This is the Conspiracy Playtime, the podcast where we play with ideas that might get you and I canceled.
Did you write that?
I think I'd kind of thought about it before.
It's beautiful.
I think that's what's on the website. conspiracyplaytime.com for all the show notes and links to our recommended books, movies, podcasts to further go down the rabbit hole.
And also Jeremiah's OnlyFans. You and I met, what, like 5 years ago, maybe?
I guess about that. We're in 2021.
Yeah, because I think the Trump-Clinton election is going on,
yeah.
like when you started working with me. I think you and I have definitely both gone through some changes since then. Mainly, I don't know. I've never been political.
Yeah.
I don't think you, I'm not going to speak for you, but you don't seem like a political guy.
No, I definitely, in high school, I had a moment where I thought, Obama's marketing was really good.
His marketing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like, change and all of his propaganda.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I wasn't old enough to vote, but then shortly after that, I went down the rabbit hole of 9/11 and all sorts of government secrecy, and there's not really a choice.
I've never voted personally for a president, but if I was gonna...
Didn't you vote third party just recently? Oh, I thought I had you convinced. I vote Libertarian just for the middle finger to both parties.
They've also got probably most aligned with my beliefs, small government. Just the right to exist without interference from, people in offices across the country that we'll never meet.
Don't mess with me when it comes to words like that.
Who are getting paid quadruple times what the average American is making.
But do they really make that much? It's like $275,000 a year or something like that.
That's not including all the other options and doors that open.
Right. All these speeches that they make behind closed doors. Clinton and Obama are both great examples of that. You never really hear those speeches unless they miraculously are leaked out somehow. I think Obama's like a multimillionaire now.
It's not quite like what our founding fathers saw as far as you would go into office to do public service. You worked on the farm and then you were getting close to retirement and you wanted to serve your country or your state or your local community and go run for office and not make a whole lot of money.
I don't think they should make anything really, but...
And no, it should not be a career where you come out of college and follow the path of the political science major to become leveling up in politics, and that's all you do, and then you get a whole bunch of stock options and know when the market's going to crash and pull out at the top before everybody that you serve gets the chance to react. But we're kind of getting off a tangent here.
Well, politics definitely is going to play a big part in a lot of these episodes, so
yep,
a tangent worthwhile maybe. But yeah, we could switch up. Do you want to go first and talk about, a little bit about you and your life and how you got to be a dirty conspiracy theorist?
Where to begin? Born in the Ashland, Oregon. That's you're already starting in a little bit of a odd place in the United States, although it's become quite different than when I was growing up. Quite the hippie town. Alternative ideas were pretty strong. I mean, if you Google my name, you actually see an article that was written when I was in freshman or sophomore, and I was using this thing called the Vibe machine. And
that sounds like it could mean all sorts of things.
Yeah, not like that though. It was this like electronic copper wire. It looked like something Tesla would make.
Tesla, the man?
The man, yes.
Okay.
Nikola Tesla. And you'd flip the switch, and there was all these tubes and copper wire, and it emitted this kind of drone sound. You basically just sat there and meditated or listened to the sound, and the idea was that it would create like healing frequencies in the surrounding area. So you'd sit around it in a circle with some other people. I felt good doing it, so I kept doing it. My mom introduced me to it. That place is no longer open, unfortunately. My mom had a bookshelf full of different new age books. While I was in high school, I was reading books about past life regression and getting comfortable with death, and was trying to meditate. Loved my crystals.
What? You're a crystal guy?
Oh yeah. So the best one is I had this little blue crystal that was like yay long, like 3.5 inches long, and it was supposed to be good for memory. The hilarious part is I would always lose this one.
Is this before you partook in the illegal substances?
Oh no, I was smoking weed. I started smoking like halfway through freshman year, and I'm sure that definitely opened up my mind to the possibility of something beyond what we can see, and then slowly experimenting with other things in high school and partying way too much. But I was still a fan of my crystals, and I still have one like quartz crystal that I still have. I don't have it on me. I used to carry that thing everywhere. It was heavier than my phone and would just always be in my pocket. I used to be all about the salt crystals, to like I would set my crystal on the salt rock with the lamp on, So the idea is that throughout the days that you're using your crystal, you're actually discharging the negative energy from your body into the crystal. And so setting it on the salt rock was supposed to release negative ions and kind of empty that crystal. I was pretty interested and into Reiki and like body healing. I was in a car accident like sophomore year, and I don't know, I think that had something to do with my quote-unquote awakening. Just having the kind of near-death experience where I was with my sister and we were going through an intersection. It was a green light for us, and as we were going through the intersection, we both saw out of the corner of our eye a car that was going pretty fast, clearly not stopping for the stoplight. We both had the same thought at the same time of, oh shit, it should have hit us by now. And like a fraction of a fraction after that thought crossed our minds, it was like, boom. Car hit the back bumper behind the rear wheel, spun us sideways, twirled around. The car's upside down, fully upside down. It looked like we just did a nosedive if you just came across it. I kind of came to a little bit faster than my sister. It was all just such a crazy experience. That car was going any faster, or we were going any slower, I would probably not be here or in this capacity. We had to go through physical therapy and had whiplash, and spine was all screwed up, and I had a lot of time to read books, research on the internet. Pretty much ruined my summer. I had big plans for making all that money, working at the pool. That kind of all went out the window. All of that kind of led down the path of, I don't know, natural alternative healing, and the chiropractor I went to was a little bit hippie, and he told me about his experiences meditating and, you know, having out-of-body experiences. And then I got my aura read. So somebody came who can see auras around people. She can see your chakras and the like space around you. Most people's auras extend like 8 feet from them totally. Like you almost have like a dome around you, or like a circle around you that goes into the earth.
Some people's is smaller though, or bigger?
Yeah, depending on kind of the trauma they've had, or
so would trauma shrink your aura? Or?
Yeah. And then the people who are like super loving, and you know, some people walk in a room and they can totally change the vibration, woo-woo feeling.
This is gonna, politics and woo are both gonna be in here. I mean,
yeah. I'm all about that woo, man.
Woo! Woo!
You know, that's when I found out I'm an indigo child, and
he does wear deodorant, in case you're wondering.
Sometimes, if I'm going in public.
This is public, right?
Yeah. I did put deodorant on it today, just to keep Ashley happy. You know?
Should also mention that Jeremiah is a hardcore proponent of the carnivore diet.
Yeah, for playing opposite land.
Yeah. When I met you, I think you had been doing the vegan diet for under a year. So I didn't know, you know, a lot of people dabble.
Yeah.
And then reconnecting years later, and you're probably even more militant about it. Like, probably eat more raw than you were.
Not necessarily right now. It kind of comes and goes in waves. You know, summertime comes and I'm always like, give me that fresh fruit. What's interesting is in high school, I was really into almond milk. And I thought, how much more sense does this make to drink almond milk and not cow's milk, because I'm not a calf. I also, my body did not agree with whey protein. So there was a time where I was, you know, in high school trying to get swole, and I've got that build where I can just work out for a bit and suddenly it's like overnight the muscle shows really quickly. But I was taking some like hippie plant-based protein powder at the time. It was really into that. I liked how I felt after that, but I was still eating meat and cheese. Ironically, at the time when I started taking a bunch of brain supplements, I went down the rabbit hole of plant-based athletes, and that kind of shattered another built-in societal mindset where you have to eat meat in order to be strong or ride your bike far. And so I was like, well, fuck it. I'm gonna try to eat plants. And I felt really good. I'm not a good person to just try something, because I can't half-ass something. If I do, I'll immediately be right back to
eating cheese and meat and all that bad shit.
Yeah, Kraft cheese.
I mean, I remember I ran into you drunk one time, and I was eating pizza.
Oh, yeah, and you offered me a slice, and I was like, it looks good.
I do think that if you would have said yes, I would have not given it to you.
Well, I appreciate that. Eating really clean, in my terminology anyways, I feel like has opened my body and mind. And when I first went vegan, I was pretty close to raw, not fully. Ran into this strange character. He came to our yard sale in Portland when we were getting ready to move, and this guy was out there. He just asked, "Are you vegan?" It's like he could sense.
He could smell it on you.
Something. I mean, maybe he didn't smell the flesh, and I don't know, it was weird. I mean, my BO has definitely changed since eating vegan, and he just kind of dropped some ideas. Eventually, a couple years later, I ate all fruit. We were fully raw for like 2 months, and for like a month of that, I ate just fruit. And man, I felt like the body became less important. It's like my soul or my energy was able to transmute my body, and I could read people's thoughts like crazy. I was vibrating. I was on a level. Unfortunately, doing my bike race kind of set me back a bit, just because I was eating whatever I could, and then recovering just kind of set me off a little bit. I mean, even still, I eat quite a bit of processed vegan food. You know, it's nothing crazy. It's not like I have Oreos every day. You know, once a quarter, maybe I'll have some Oreos.
Once a quarter?
Yeah.
So yeah, Jeremiah did a, how many miles was it? Like 1,000?
1,003. Portland to Bend to Burns to Steens, over to Lakeview, Oregon, which is the mile-high town in Oregon.
Tallest town in Oregon, yeah.
Yep. And then over to Crater Lake, and then back up, like what, Cottage Grove, Eugene, back up to Portland. And that was quite the experience to see what the hell this body's capable of. Experiencing that edge and plane where you can keep going even though your whole mind is like, fuck this, dude. What are you doing? But they're just being like, nope, we're still saddling on. Like, keep going. At the end of the ride, I was like, I could have done this faster. I still had more in the tank. Like, how much was I holding back?
So what's this line that you cross when you've gone too far? Is it death or just straight up like collapse? Like how far could too far be?
I think it's a long ways away.
Further away than most of us would ever push.
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, I think David Goggins has the idea.
Bitch, you don't fucking know me.
Most people get to a certain limit and they're like, oh, I can't do any more. And that's only like 40% of your potential. Your body is capable of so much more than we're willing to put it through, especially nowadays, because we're got all these creature comforts. You know, we're not really acclimated or used to pushing ourselves. But the human body is made to endure. It's like the default for this thing to get through, pass on genetics, and, you know, keep breeding. And we've gotten to the point where we just have our freaking binkies in, and we're a bunch of softies. But if you can play that edge, you can realize that we're capable of so much more. And it also kind of stripped down my emotional wall. And so there would be like points where I was just a roller coaster of emotions and, you know, things I'd never felt before because I never really allowed them in. And I really got to see every thought and how much energy each single thought took. Because when you're that exhausted and, you know, sleep deprived, carb deprived, probably hydration deprived, heat exhaustion, you can feel just how much one single thread of a thought takes for your body to process. It's exhausting when you're at that point and you're having to think about, okay, where am I going to go get food? Where am I going to sleep tonight? And at a certain point, you just have to shut all that off and be like, no, dude, I'm just riding the bike. Nothing else fucking matters at all right now. Just ride the damn bike. Because otherwise, you're wasting your energy. And coming back to the real world was quite the adjustment period because there's so much going on. For about a week or two, I was kind of like a ghost, getting acclimated to this modern world of everything going on. And, oh yeah, I need to go to work, and at work there's like a million things going on. It was just quite the experience to play that edge of this human body that we have here. When you think you've had a hard day or you didn't sleep well the night before and you're waking up tired, that it's like, it's nothing compared to what is possible. What's this all really about? Yeah, which I'm excited to explore and play with. What's your story, man? What's led you to this point?
First of all, my name is Colby, and I think we've said your name a few times.
Maybe. Jeremiah.
I guess my story kind of starts off pretty early in my life. First of all, I've got one of the most open-minded mothers out there. And when I was a little kid, I saw a ghost. I must have been like 2. My mom, in the other room, she would notice like, oh, he says something, and then he pauses. And it's like he's actually talking to somebody. You know, little kids just constantly are just
babbling.
Yeah, say whatever the fuck it just comes to their mind, especially when they're learning to talk. But she noticed it was actually a conversation. Not only did she look into it and believe me, she told me about it later in life. I guess this was around the time my parents got divorced. My dad also thought it was a real ghost. And my mom, my grandma, her mom, knew the guy that used to live in that house. And the way I described him, she was convinced that I was seeing the ghost of the guy that died in that house. When I wonder about the existence of life after death, just that experience in itself really plays pretty heavy on my mind. Like, what the fuck is a ghost?
Right.
Wait for me.
Do we all have a soul? And sometimes it gets trapped here for whatever reason. Is it just a leftover like resonance?
Like a mirage or like...
Yeah, it might not even be somebody that's really there. Like it could just be...
Their vibration is almost like left an impression on the ether.
I've never been an atheist. I even kind of tried to be a Christian there for a while when I was like 9, 10. My cousin scared the hell into me. Literally, I was terrified of like if the Christian mythology is true and you do anything to piss off Sky Daddy, that could be it for you. So I kind of struggled with that for a few years. And even like into high school when I was kind of like, oh yeah, this organized religion, Christianity, it's kind of bullshit, but why not just believe in case?
Right. And that is kind of something that's easy to fall into because, you know, it's kind of like putting on your seatbelt.
Right.
Well, just in case.
I would say I was probably into my 20s when I took off that seatbelt and just said, the first time I ate mushrooms, I was 22 years old. And I'd been smoking weed for about 3 years. But it really brought this sense that I had when I was a kid. Like, almost that we're God having a dream. And that we'll probably just wake up someday and laugh our asses off that we took it so seriously. There was the ghost experience, which I don't know if I made it clear, I have no memory of it whatsoever. I just remember being told about it when I was probably a few years older than 2. I was just always really an anxious kid. I did not sleep for shit.
Oh, really?
I bet you I averaged, and still to this day, unless I really tie one on at night, 3 or 4 hours of sleep is probably enough for me to function on. I don't know what kind of damage I'm doing to my brain. As a kid, I would just lay in bed. Like, I have memories from 5, 6 years old where it'd be like, well, you know, everybody dies. And my mom and my dad and my stepdad and everybody I love, they're gonna die before I do. Just shit like that, you know, stuff you shouldn't be thinking about when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
And I know I woke my mom on several occasions just scared of whatever, nuclear war. That was a big one. I saw Terminator 2 when it first came out. I would have been like 8 or 9 years old, and
yikes,
that fucking
young for that.
Yeah, my dad let me watch it when I was visiting him, and that caused quite a fight.
Oh jeez, I bet.
And I don't know why. I was a little bitch and told my mom that I watched it, even though I knew she wouldn't be happy by it. And that scene, have you seen it?
Been a long time.
Like Sarah Connor's gripping the chain link fence, and the fucking nuke and the mushroom cloud goes off, and it just, for 92, the graphics were pretty intense, and it just basically melted her face off.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Then, you know, you find out that's a real technology.
Right.
Supposedly.
Find about Hiroshima and...
Yeah. Luckily, I was, you know, just after the Cold War. It had kind of ended.
Otherwise, you would have been a basket case.
If I was a little kid in the days of JFK or even Ronald Reagan, where we were apparently somebody pushing a button away from the, you know, mutually assured destruction of the species, basically. There wasn't much going on from the end of the Cold War to 9/11 for us to be scared of. Like, no wars, really. I mean, we occupied a few countries in the Middle East, but aside from that, you know, it was a pretty tranquil time for us. When I did sleep, I've had some weird shit, like out-of-body experiences, like just going down almost into like a DMT type tunnel. Kind of interested in like lucid dreaming and what is dreaming, other than like being physically worn out. There's a reason that we need to sleep.
It's one thing to sleep and have your body, you know, regenerate and get rid of dead cells and create new cells and rest, but why do we have to have such crazy dreams? You know, is it just organizing things in the brain, or is it something deeper than that?
Well, have you ever had a dream where you saw something and it happened in real life later?
Yeah.
I think I remember. Oh yeah, so Jeremiah went through a fire. He had his RV. About that dream you had?
I forgot about the dream, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll do a whole episode about, maybe even more than one, about that kind of stuff. But basically, I'll let you tell the story.
Honestly, I feel like I kind of tried to forget it. There was a night where we had smelled smoke. Couldn't really pinpoint where it was. And I can't remember if it was that night or the next night, but I had a dream that we had to evacuate and leave our RV. Literally the next fucking day, the fire starts in Ashland and we gotta grab all our shit and get out. That was kind of a hard knock lesson to pay the fuck attention to your dreams, because it's not the first time where I've had a dream and then it comes true. When I believe it's true, am I bringing that into my reality because
or
I choose?
Even choosing that path,
right?
There's probably multiple paths you could go down, but yeah, acknowledging your dream as possibly real. A lot of people think that people who said Donald Trump was going to become president, it's their fault that he did.
Right.
I am going to be the greatest president that God ever created. Remember that.
Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole of, do we, our collective consciousness, does that influence the world we live in? Maybe that's a whole episode.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, dreams can be crazy. And especially when you're a kid, they can seem very realistic and be hard to discern reality from dream world. Sometimes I even wonder if some of the memories I have as a child are totally dreams or fabrications. I can imagine with your sleeplessness, you probably have quite a bit of that.
I would say so. It's hard sometimes, especially you were talking about sleep deprivation earlier, and as a fella who likes to drink, I oftentimes wonder, was that a dream? Did I black out and that's still memory? But yeah, there's memories in there, even in my adult life, where it's is that something that really happened? Is that something I imagined? But it's hard to say.
Was it just a glitch in the Matrix?
It could be a glitch. I went to college in Arizona, mainly to study film, and...
You poor sucker.
Yeah. Right before everything went digital, of course. This was 2003-ish, 2003 to 2005, about a year and a half period where I was studying how to make analog movies. I didn't really do many drugs until I was 19. I drank maybe 3 times in high school, smoked pot once, twice. But I really got into smoking weed, and I just kind of branched out and took some other classes. I took some philosophy, dabbled in a little bit of psychology, and I sat in on some journalism classes. There was one class where we had to make a commercial.
Oh.
And so the psychology that goes into that
for sure
is quite worth a look. I'm sure most of our listeners will be familiar with Edward Bernays, and he is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and this is the guy who basically wrote the handbook around World War I for propaganda and the use of propaganda against your own citizens, which was made illegal until Barack Obama. The country being able to propagandize their own citizens was supposedly illegal.
Right. Which, even if it's illegal, if you're doing it in a fictional way, is that some gray ambiguity?
Oh, we're going to get into predictive programming for sure. Yeah. And this actually ties back to Bernays being the nephew of Sigmund Freud. His nephew is, you know this, right?
I'm trying to remember.
The Netflix guy.
Oh, that's right.
So, if you want to look at probably the biggest conveyor of modern propaganda, you need look no further than Netflix, really. There's a lot of good shit on there, and it's the best deal in town.
Yeah.
But they also have kind of engaged in, I don't know, shall we call it wokeism?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, college kind of opened up my mind, and
Wait, so you're telling me college was actually good for you?
Oh, for sure. The experience, just getting out there.
Yeah.
And it was actually, I say I was studying film. It was a community college that was basically broke down into the film department and a nursing school.
Oh.
And then there was just a bunch of other fuckers taking their prereqs to go to a university or whatever. But
Sure.
their film program was outstanding. And I did go to LA briefly after I graduated high school and tried to get into a film school there, and that didn't end up working out. But
I can imagine that was a tough crowd.
oh, it's once you go to LA and Hollywood in particular, we're led to believe it's this magical place, but it's actually quite gross. I have, a lot of friends that live down there, but not for me. So yeah, college did help, and then, I met a lot of people. I had books passed on to me by friends that definitely got me on the path I'm on now. After that, I kind of bounced around a little bit, and I ended up moving to Eugene, Oregon, and I became a newspaper delivery boy.
You see some weird people that time of night.
This is 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day. I kind of went down the rabbit hole there. I met some people who, kind of like what you were describing yourself, kind of like they were new agey and kind of like in the woo-woo crowd, but I met a kid. He was probably just a few years younger than me, and he believed in everything. I mean, he was like Eddie Bravo. He showed me some documentaries, and I knew who Alex Jones was. And one of the coolest things about that newspaper job was I found this AM radio station where Coast to Coast AM used to be Art Bell. It was George Norrie by the time I was listening to it, and it broke my brain. I haven't been the same since.
There is something about that time of night, time of day, because I delivered newspapers also for a small stint of time, and there's something about it that just allows you to step outside the normal society, and you almost kind of feel like you're looking at the world from a different perspective. While everybody else is asleep, you're running around town, and you're just feeding your brain with something different than what everybody else during the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock traffic hour listening to the propaganda being spewed there.
Definitely, and that's like the time I was going to bed.
Yeah.
I'd get home around 6, maybe eat a little bit, and then crash, wake up around noon. It was an interesting time for sure. I would say in my late 20s, I kind of stepped away from the conspiracy game just because
it can be exhausting.
Exhausting for sure. If you look at it through the wrong lens, a little bit depressing. I said enough's enough. I moved to Ashland, and I kind of just stepped back. What's the saying? Ignorance is bliss.
Oh yeah.
And I actually, it's your fault that I got back into it, because I had never listened to a podcast, with the exception of I downloaded like the entire library of Radiolab. They did do the podcast format later on, but yeah, it was just basically a radio show, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some good shit on there too.
Yeah.
And if anybody hasn't heard Radiolab, I mean, their early years, I mean, they were talking about something I'm going to bring up here in a few minutes, actually. You started working with me, and I think you were listening to some health-related podcasts, and I think that you put on, this is back when Joe Rogan was just starting to blow up.
Yeah, he was still, in the 500s, if even that, episodes?
I think that I started listening when he was like around 600 something.
Okay, yeah.
What is he now? I think he just did episode 1666, and he had on Duncan Trussell.
Oh, okay.
You converted me, and I've been a podcast junkie ever since. And
you're not the first to say that.
Yeah. And I mean, this is probably where we should stand up.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely... It was Tinfoil Hat podcast with Sam Tripoli that got me back into it. And it all started with you, and then Joe Rogan, and then Ari Shaffir had on Sam Tripoli on his podcast. And I started listening to it, and then I probably subscribed to 10 to 15 more conspiracy podcasts. That's probably a good time to talk about how we came to be doing this. You, I think, texted me in the middle of March of 2020.
Yep.
And I hadn't talked to you in probably a year or so. I said, hey, everybody's quitting at work.
Yeah, I had sent you...
It was Duncan Trussell.
Was that what it was?
Yeah, you texted me and said, hey, did you see the most recent Duncan Trussell on Rogan? And
yeah,
I had listened to about half of it, and so that was how we started talking again, ironically enough. And
that was one of those serendipitous moments where suddenly there was a job opening there. The whole world was very uncertain. I was trying to make it on my own doing web design, and suddenly the prospects that I had dried up, and it was kind of questionable what was going to happen. But I knew people would need soap.
Tonight, we make soap.
So, you know, it was kind of like, well, might as well take the job and go be able to talk with Colby and not go totally insane. And then we basically made each other insane.
Or sane.
By, you know, being able to discuss ideas and current events, past events. We would have conversations, and then you or I would listen to a podcast a couple days later, and it was like the exact same conversation we were having. So it was like, well, fuck it, let's start our own.
Cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that many of the conversations we had through March of 2020 all the way until just recently will probably just be some variation of episodes we're going to record at some point. You got my brain cooking, and you said, hey, Jeff Rentz. If you out there don't know about Jeff Rentz, I mean, this guy's he's not a small deal in the conspiracy crowd. I think him and Alex Jones sued each other at one point for talking shit. And
go to Rentz.com, RENSE.com. If you've never heard of this guy, just go check it out. Highly recommend at least knowing who this guy is.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. I did some work for him. I gave him rides to the airport. It was right when I moved to Ashland the first time. This is when I was kind of like still in it. He has a radio show. He was selling his website, and Jeremiah says, why don't we just do this? And then you tried to reach out to him, and
yeah,
I don't think he ever got back to you. And
what was interesting is I found his website for sale early February. I sent him a message, told him, hey, you know, born and raised in Ashland, always kind of have an open mind. And he was, in the posting, he was kind of, you know, discreet as to what it was, but said it was a news site. I think it said alternative news. You know, he gets millions of visitors a year, and we chatted on the phone for a minute. It was thanks to me visiting his website after talking to him that I saw, hey, there's this sickness going on in China, and it kind of sparked my curiosity. And
yeah, because February was kind of like, still people were going, oh, it's not going to come here.
Yeah.
Lord Fauci himself even said that. Yeah, we don't need to worry about this thing.
Yeah. And they were pretty early on the horn as far as this thing exploding like it did. At the time, I mean, I didn't have the capital to buy this business. I can't remember how much he was asking. Some ludicrous I think, was it $500,000 or 200?
I wanted to say 50 grand, but maybe it was $500,000.
It was quite a bit. Part of me was like, well, first of all, his website is super outdated, and there could be some things there to just help streamline things. And but then it was like, well, why don't we just make our own and, you know, cover the topics that interest us and put our, you know, take on it in a non-serious way, but, you know, somewhat serious, but not like die-hard evangelical position. I don't think either of us are really super tied to our beliefs, or
no, that's why we're going to play around with them, you know.
Exactly.
And Jeff Rentz, if you're listening, you fucked up, man. Should have gotten back to Jeremiah.
I did try to reach out again, though I'm sure the past year he found his fire again and didn't want to, you know, give up. Because I certainly started to feel a duty and obligation to, like, fuck, Colby, we got to get this thing going. Like, I feel like it's our public service, and with everything that's gone on in the past year, people need to know the history of conspiracies and what has happened in the past, and wake the fuck up.
It's a great segue. I think we've talked enough about ourselves for now.
Yeah, we're already at almost an hour here.
Yeah, I figure if we just go over these topics and we stop before like an hour and a half is up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can always pause this and come back later.
It's true. And we're going to, I don't know what, try to keep our episodes mostly floating around an hour. Maybe some of the more intense ones will go closer to 2, but we don't want to be like those conspiracy guys from Ireland. I mean, they crank out 5 or 6 hour long episodes.
Wow.
I mean, they're great to listen to. We're going to try to
break those up into parts.
I mean,
it's more than...
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorites, but I mean, I don't know if a lot of people are going to listen to me and you talk for 5 or 6 hours at a time. I know I wouldn't want to.
Right. If you're out there, we love you. Hopefully we provide enough value, you know, where you feel like it's worth hanging out with us. And we hope to present ideas to you that kind of shift your thought perspective. The first idea being, what the fuck is a conspiracy theory? And where did that come from?
I did some digging around, and, you know, I'm not one to usually go right to Wikipedia, but when I searched, it popped up, you know, the opening section of conspiracy theory on Wikipedia. It gives a pretty hefty explanation about what a conspiracy theory is, and I want all of us to decide what kind of angle they're going for here. A conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or situation that invokes a conspiracy by sinister and powerful groups, often political in motivation, when other explanations are more probable. So right off the bat, within their definition, they give it a negative connotation. Mainstream news outlets will deliver conspiracy theories based on this definition. I mean, I'm sure we can all think of examples. Most recently, Russiagate was one where any outlet, I think Fox might be the only exception, was pushing this conspiracy theory for the better part of 5 years. After they themselves propped up Trump during the primaries, they had to blame an outside force.
We are the victims of a bloodless coup. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
Other explanations were more probable. Right. So it goes on, and it says it implies that the appeal to conspiracy is based on prejudice or insufficient evidence. A conspiracy theory is not simply about a conspiracy. Instead, it refers to a hypothesized conspiracy with specific characteristics, such as an opposition to the mainstream consensus among those people who are qualified to evaluate its accuracy. And in parentheses, they have scientists or historians. They leave out the media.
And it's kind of funny that scientists and historians are included there, because science is all hypothesis.
Not the science with the capital S, though.
Oh, well.
It's the new religion.
How many textbooks can you pick up and read a different version? Not to mention, the people who write the history are the victors. You don't ever hear the losing side, and how much history is lost or mistranslated. Scientists can be bought, historians can be bought or persuaded by their own beliefs to change the outcome. Continue on.
Precisely. It is the prevailing theory among a lot of scholars and people who look into these kind of things that the term conspiracy theory, although was around in the early 1900s and used every once in a while, it really became big in 1963. The CIA didn't exactly coin the term, but they brought it back and gave it a new connotation, revolving around anybody who questioned the findings of the Warren Report with the whole JFK assassination thing.
Totally inconsistent with the shot from the depository. Again, back and to the left. Back and to the left.
That actually came out in 1976 through a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. It doesn't say a lot. All it says is conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization. Again, this is the CIA. For example, by falsely alleging that Lee Harvey Oswald worked for us. And so right there, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're given two choices. Did he only work for the CIA? Or did he act alone?
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
This doesn't say a number of other theories that were surrounding it, like, I mean, for example, the mob connections.
Right.
Fidel Castro also was implicated in wanting him dead. If you think that Lee Harvey Oswald worked for the CIA, you are a conspiracy theorist right off the bat. We're going to talk about 5 types of conspiracy theories that a man who worked for Reason magazine, he's an editor there, in 2013 he wrote a book entitled The United States of Paranoia. And in this book he comes up with 5 types. The first is called The Enemy Outside. It refers to theories based on figures alleged to be scheming against a community from without. Then there's The Enemy Within. Finds conspirators lurking inside the nation, indistinguishable from ordinary citizens. And you think about, like, we were talking about the Cold War earlier. Everybody thought that maybe their next door neighbor that they didn't know may have been a Russian spy.
They look like us. They speak better English than we do. They're not allowed to say a single word in Russian once they get here. If you make any noise, I will kill you.
Bye.
Bye.
The enemy above involves powerful people manipulating events for their own gain. And I think you would be a fool to believe this never happens. I mean, people get caught acting this way all the time. The enemy below features the lower classes working to overturn the social order. This is just history.
Yep.
And the last one he talks about is the benevolent conspiracies are angelic forces that work behind the scenes to improve the world and help people. And if you think about QAnon, that's just kind of what they believed.
Yeah.
You know, there was a benevolent force at work, and for some reason they thought it was Donald Trump. All right, there's another author, and I think this is a little bit better. He talks about 3 types. His name is Michael Barkin. I believe that's how you pronounce that. He's a political science professor. and he had a book in 2003 called A Culture of Conspiracy. Event conspiracy theories. This refers to a limited and well-defined events. Examples may include such conspiracy theories as those concerning the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, and the spread of AIDS. Systematic conspiracy theories. The conspiracy is believed to have broad goals, usually conceived as securing control of a country or region or even the entire world. And I mean,
Jesuits.
Yes, Jesuits, NWO, we all know about this. What Alex Jones calls the globalist scum.
Yeah.
The goals are sweeping, whilst the conspiratorial machinery is generally simple. A single evil organization implements a plan to infiltrate and subvert existing institutions. This is a common scenario in conspiracy theories, and this is big here.
So this is basically when people say they are
with the
creating
capital T.
this, they are organizing order out of chaos, or it's just painted with that broad stroke of they, or when they say the Nazis are doing it, or it's the Jews.
We're going to get to that. This is a common scenario in conspiracy theories that focus on the alleged machinations of Jews, Freemasons, communism, or the Catholic Church.
I was going to say the Freemasons and also. That's what I was thinking about.
And so the last one from Michael Barkin is super conspiracy theories, and this is one word. Super conspiracy is one word.
Oh.
So, for Barkin, such theories link multiple alleged conspiracies together hierarchically. This is like intersectionality of conspiracy theories. His cited examples are the ideas of David Icke and Milton William Cooper, otherwise known as Bill Cooper. This is the man who on it was either June or July of 2001, on his radio show, he said that the Twin Towers were going to fall and that Osama bin Laden would be blamed for it.
You see, the CIA created Osama bin Laden. They recruited him. They trained him. They found his leadership. They brought them all together. They showed them how to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and when that was over, they still continued to fund him and train him, and they're now using him to help bring about world government by making him the big boogeyman, because they can't use Saddam Hussein anymore.
This man was shot down in his front yard.
I think that's a whole episode.
Oh, for sure.
About Cooper and the history of him and everything leading up to that.
Yes, this is the guy who was the prototype for figures such as Alex Jones. I mean...
But they despised each other, right?
Well, there was an episode of Alex Jones. Well, it was a live broadcast, and it was on the New Year's Eve of 2000, the Y2K crisis. And if you listen to this show, you would think that the fucking world was ending.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill Cooper acknowledged that this was fear-mongering. This was not a guy who was honest, and he was out there selling something. And think what you want about Alex Jones. I mean, I think we all have mixed feelings about him. But this was an allegation that was true and still is true. I do believe that Jeff Rentz said Alex Jones had Bill Cooper killed, and that was the reason Alex Jones sued Jeff. A review of this Michael Barkin book by a political blogger by the name of Daniel Pipes. Some people believe in the lost continent of Atlantis and in unidentified flying objects. Others worry about an 18th century secret society called the Bavarian Illuminati, or a mythical Zionist-occupied government secretly running the United States. What if these disparate elements, shared beliefs, joined forces, won a much larger audience, broke out of their intellectual and political ghetto, and became capable of challenging the premises of public life in the United States? Once again, we are to be feared. Our ideas are dangerous. And I mean, this guy's a political science professor. He's selling to the public that people who believe in these things are dangerous. Probably why we're all being censored right now. One more thing I want to talk about as far as types of conspiracy theories. You know who Murray Rothbard is? I think he died in 95, but he was kind of the godfather of like anarcho-capitalism and the modern libertarian movement to a certain degree. And he breaks it into two categories. A shallow theorist observes an event and asks who benefits, jumping to the conclusion that a posited beneficiary is responsible for covertly influencing events. On the other hand, the deep theorist begins with a hunch and then seeks out evidence. And we all know people like this. I mean,
right.
I'm sure I'm guilty of it at times.
I mean, it's hard not to be.
Right.
Our psychology wants to justify our initial gut feeling, or to justify our situation in life, you know, the haves and have-nots. It's kind of like blaming the rich, or, you know, for you being poor.
Bernie Sanders!
Yeah, and then you just find ways to justify that.
Very true. I don't think it's necessarily a bad approach to take, as long as you are honest with what you find.
Right.
And if you prove your own theory wrong, you got to admit that to yourself.
Yeah. It's just like science. You have to first theorize and then test and, you know, come to a conclusion, whether that conclusion justifies or shows that you were crazy for thinking that, and you have to be willing to accept that. And I think that's where it helps that there's two of us here, where we can kind of push each other a little bit and question each other.
Jeremiah's here to keep me in check.
Likewise.
I don't know if I will ever have to do that to you. You're a little bit more logical than me, I think. I'm a little more on the fantastical side.
Sometimes.
I mean, is the Earth flat? We'll get to that later.
I don't know.
That's a great answer.
It's a fundamental fact of calculus and non-Euclidean geometry. Small sections of large curved surfaces will always look flat to little creatures that crawl upon it. But this...
I think the next thing to talk about is the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy that has been proven. And these are still labeled as conspiracy theories. So one that I think most people probably know about. Do you know who Prescott Bush was?
I don't think
so. He is the father of George Herbert Walker Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush. And he was a senator, and he was one of 7 directors of the New York bank, Union Bank.
Oh.
And this motherfucker, flat out, was funding the Nazis. It was part of the financial empire of the German Fritz Thyssen, who actively financed the Nazis and comprehensively helped them come to power and then laundered their capital. Like, this isn't debated to this day, but you would think a man like that would end up in prison, not having his lineage fucking spend 12 years in the White House.
Yeah.
So this is just the kind of shit that, you know, you can't deny. Another one that everyone should know about. We all know about the Unabomber. Theodore Kaczynski. I don't know. I assume his first name's Theodore. Ted Kaczynski. I believe he was 16 years old when he graduated high school. I mean, he was sharp. Wow. And he went to Harvard. And during his sophomore year, he underwent this, it's called... God, I want to say it's like the Murray experience or experiment, but it was the precursor in a way to MK Ultra. And what they would do is, and this is where we're going to bring Radiolab back. I looked into this after listening to a Radiolab episode several years ago, where this professor, he would bring in these students. They were complicit in taking part in this experiment, but he would have them fill out questionnaires. And then he would use these questions against them. He would sit. I mean, there's pictures online you can find of Ted Kaczynski. It looks just like Clockwork Orange. And he's strapped to a chair. He's got like constraints around his head. And they psychologically broke him down little by little over 3 years. And look what happened to that guy. This is something that, when we are told the story of the Unabomber, is left out.
Oh, for sure.
This is something that definitely shaped who this guy became. He was against basically technology and that was his motivation. The last one I want to talk about, this is great for people who think that your government would never hurt.
They're here to help us.
They are. So, Operation Northwoods, you know about this?
That sounds familiar.
This is an outrageous fucking thing that they came up with. It was a military operation where they were going to attack people in Washington, D.C. and Miami. And I do believe that there was talks about a drone plane that was supposedly going to be full of American passengers, but it was going to be empty. What does this remind you of?
Yeah.
And it was 1962 that JFK acknowledged that he actually had this thing on his desk. And it was, from the higher up, the influence of the military intelligence complex. And had JFK said yes, we would have had a 9/11 type thing back in the early 60s. Luckily, he had the wherewithal to believe that this was not a good idea, and he shut it down.
And that's why he was the greatest president.
I think that he was the worst president when he came onto the scene, and then throughout his experience with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs and all that shit, probably became the president that
we wish we had.
Yeah, exactly. Those are just a few things, and looks like we've got a little bit of time left. I figured this would be fun. I just randomly wrote down 11 questions.
Okay.
My favorite number.
11 is a good number.
And
3's a little bit better, but 3 and 11 are both magical numbers.
311, baby.
Yep.
All right. So all I want you to do, and this is just going to give you and I maybe even, but our listeners, a better sense of who we are.
Okay.
So just say yes, no, or maybe.
Is this some type of MK Ultra
yes.
thing?
I'm going to use this to psychologically break you down over the duration of this podcast.
Great.
All right. And I'll answer them as well.
Okay.
But you're going first.
All right.
So, Jeremiah, are there Sasquatch walking around out in them thar woods?
I don't know.
So that's a maybe?
Yeah, that's a maybe. Can I expand?
Please do.
Maybe in a realm or in another dimension. I will acknowledge that there are some interesting experiences that people have had, and I won't discount those. And the woods are vast, so maybe.
If people out there listening have ever been to the Pacific Northwest, I mean, there's most towns out here, you walk 5 miles in any direction and you're in the middle of the forest. The magnitude of it, if you get in an airplane and fly from Portland to Seattle,
there's a lot of woods.
You look down there, I mean, a lot of people say, nobody's ever found a Bigfoot skeleton.
Right.
But how often do you come across a black bear skeleton? I mean, there's many black bears, and I've never seen a dead one.
No. I mean, I've seen a dead one that we had to pick up off the side of the road.
Okay.
And then we just threw it into a pit where animals would come at night, and the next day, nothing would be there.
Yeah, it doesn't take those scavengers long to pick those bones clean. And I mean, oftentimes, they don't just leave the remains. They'll scatter the bones too.
Yeah. I mean, because they're going to take it somewhere. Multiple parties are going to come in and take their own piece. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole ecosystem out there that could totally destroy a skeleton of Bigfoot. Not to mention, we don't know how long a Bigfoot can live. Like, how long does a whale live?
That's a good question.
Isn't it a long time? Or like sea turtles or...
Oh, I think sea turtles are like hundreds of years old.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of trapped into this thought process of 72 years old is the average lifespan of humans, but...
It dropped, dude, after COVID. Of course. On the NPR yesterday, they were talking about that.
Oh, sure.
National Propaganda Radio. All right, next question. Has man really walked on the moon?
No way.
Maybe.
You are wearing your...
I'm wearing nasty here. I think there was a strong push to spin the narrative. And when I say spin, I don't mean like spin a top. I mean spin a thread or spin a quilt.
A yarn?
Together. Yeah. That America was superior. You know, we had the whole space race. We needed a celebration. I find it weird that the moon landing was somehow live televised. How did we have that technology back then? It just seems odd to me that we somehow had that technology, but if you have lived in the country at all and experienced satellite internet, what the fuck? Like, that shit sucks.
And this is, 1969 that we supposedly landed on?
I think so, yeah.
The iPhone in your pocket is like 100 times more superior to the technology that they had on the spacecraft.
Right. You just think about, even in the 90s, how basic computers were, and, you know, dial-up internet, you know, hardly any storage space, and they were sending video and audio through space from the moon. They set up a satellite and then broadcasted it to the satellites around Earth and then down to Earth. I don't know, the whole thing just seems a little weird. I hadn't quite accepted the possibility that we didn't land on the moon until a few years ago. Part of it was like, I didn't even put any thought into it.
You take for granted that these educational institutions would ever not tell you the truth.
Right.
So I just realized I didn't answer the Bigfoot question.
Bigfoot.
I'm going to say maybe.
Okay.
For have we walked on the moon? I'm kind of like a black and white kind of guy when it comes to the moon. I think we're either fucking occupying the moon with several bases, or we've never been at all.
Right. I mean,
if
there's
we
the
went
whole
once,
dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
That we don't know anything about.
And I mean, also you listen to these guys' interviews, and these astronauts, man, they say the weirdest fucking shit.
They also are very guarded or
defensive even.
Yes, very much.
Which one was it that like decked out a reporter?
Oh yeah, that was Armstrong.
Was it Armstrong?
I'm pretty sure. Which is kind of ironic. His name's Armstrong, and he Armstrong this dude with a punch to the face.
I was thinking it wasn't him, but you're probably right.
I'm pretty sure.
If you had that thought, I bet you're right.
I just watched a little segment with him the other night, so it's kind of fresh in my head. And he was very defensive and wouldn't swear on the Bible that he landed on the moon.
Who gives a fuck about the Bible if you're like actually landing on the moon? I think that your religious beliefs should...
Well, if you actually landed on the moon, you would think that you would be a little bit more confident and like, get the fuck out of here. Of course I landed on the moon.
It's almost like reverse psychology though. Like if they had these guys come back and it was legit,
yeah,
would they? Just want to be straightforward with us about it. Conspiracy candy is a term I'm going to use a little bit throughout these episodes, and to me, a conspiracy candy is something that the intelligence agencies do actively engage in, and it's where they basically just muddy the waters. Like, oh, here's the truth, and it's pretty outrageous, but here's a bunch of other shit that we're going to surround it. So, have fun.
Yeah. It's like getting junk mail.
Exactly.
And having to wade through all of it to see.
Maybe we should call it conspiracy spam instead.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Next one. Are we just one of infinite parallel universes? Multiverses, I should say.
Strongly believe that.
I do as well. And I'm sure we'll have episodes talking about all these things.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I mean, I love the idea of it. And that's probably why I'm so attached to it. It just sounds right. I don't know.
I feel like I experienced it on psychedelics.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that experience.
And I'll tell that story at some point. It'll take a little bit of time. We're not going to get to it today.
Yeah.
And this one I've already answered. So, do you believe in ghosts?
I believe that there is some sort of paranormal. I don't know if they're ghosts per se. I don't know how to classify them. I haven't had any experiences like you've had. But in my family, there's a house where some other family members have experienced a ghost in that house. It would now be my ex-brother-in-law's house.
Okay, so your sister?
Yeah, so my sister's, well, it was his grandpa's house. And it's an old house, and there's just been some strange experiences that they've had there. But, you know, I was a fan of the Ouija board.
And satanic motherfucker.
Dude, I thought it was cool. I don't know. I mean...
Do you think that you have anything riding on you right now that happened then? A lot of people feel like, you know,
they bring them with them.
They channel something out when they fuck around with that kind of stuff. I don't know how I feel about it. I've never personally fucked with a Ouija board. Not because I don't want to. It's just like I've never been to a strip club. Right. Not because I don't want to. It's just never happened.
You know, okay, so I can't remember who told me this story. But when they were younger, they played with the Ouija board, got super freaked out. I can't remember if they buried it or burned it.
Nice.
And then the fucking thing showed up on their front porch.
Oh, wow. This sounds like a Twilight Zone episode or something. So,
maybe.
What if somebody was watching them? Burned this thing? Like, man, wouldn't that be funny if I just got a Ouija board and put...
I mean, it could have been somebody else who was in the group with them or something like that.
Or maybe it really happened.
Maybe.
I mean, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is time travel possible?
This is what makes time travel possible. The flux capacitor.
I don't really know what time is, so possibly. Maybe eventually.
Well, eventually would mean that it does exist because people could come back to us from the future.
Right.
You know who John Teeter? It's Titor. This is a guy that showed up in the, like, God, I want to say it was the late 90s, early 2000s. I could be wrong about that, but he was making posts back when the internet was in its infant phases, and like, I am John Teeter. And I actually listened to an episode of Coast to Coast AM where they just went off on this guy, and it's compelling. But the whole thing is he was coming back from like an apocalyptic scenario where he needed a certain hard drive. And to me, it just kind of negates the whole thing because he was like ahead of where we are now.
Right.
And he needed a
hard drive from back then.
Yeah, because
everything has changed.
To like jump start society back. Anyway. Yeah, I'm kind of with you because we're talking about earlier parallel multiverses, and then traveling through time. What's a timeline, really? Like,
I was told by the person who could read auras that time is more of a spinning, almost like a never-ending spiral.
So was Rust Cole wrong? Time's a flat circle.
It was kind of similar to that, honestly, because she kind of put the idea that you're spiraling around, and you can sometimes get vibrations or feelings across those spirals. So you can kind of get close to that spiral and like kind of almost jump or feel that the past or the present. And I mean, time is a weird thing, just the way that we perceive it, the way our memories are constructed, so that every year time feels like it's going faster. My grandma always told me, like, just you wait, it just goes faster. And like, I always thought that was so fucking weird.
Yeah, that also has a lot to do with like brain function and how, you know what memory dumping is?
It sounds familiar.
So like you do the same drive every day. And if this drive is uneventful, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're just from point A to point B and you don't remember the drive at all. Now, if like a fucking deer and out in the middle of the road and you almost hit it, you would remember that because that variates from the
normal.
So yeah, I think that as we get older, just like the hard drive space gets a little cluttered, so our brain somehow knows to selectively just like switch. I mean, I don't know if this is a prevailing theory in psychology or like neuroscience, but I remember learning about that because it was happening to my mom and we all thought she was getting fucking Alzheimer's or something. And so then when I heard about this, it's like, oh, she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're both for a maybe, I guess, on the time travel. All right, next. Did one lone gunman assassinate JFK?
No.
It's a big fuck no for me, too, and we'll have an episode on that, I'm sure. Are there shadow agencies or a deep state running things?
I don't know about running, but influencing and maybe running particular events, I would say 100%.
Yeah, same here. I kind of dumped that when I told you I kind of got out of conspiracy theories because that's pretty
a dark thing to think about.
Yeah,
for sure.
If that's something that's always on your mind, you're going to become like Mel Gibson.
The whole Vietnam War was fought over a bet that Howard Hughes lost to Aristotle Onassis.
If that's true, the only thing that I can do is amass massive amounts of wealth / power, because that's what wealth is. That's what money is. It's like units of power in this game, I believe anyways, and stack the deck in our favor and push them out somehow with money and power and influence. That's the only way I can see that being possible in this world that we're living now, in this capitalistic society where money does make the world go round.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary to think like the whole COVID thing kind of showed us it doesn't take something very monumental to just put a pause on the whole, financial system, and it could end overnight.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're a Bitcoin guy, and I don't understand it at all. So we're coming from different angles here, because I think that money is an illusion unless it's backed by something physical.
So I think money is whatever you want to believe it is. And so as long as you have enough people believing that this green
system,
or that my card sliding and these numbers going through the computer system is real, as long as we are continuing to earn money with time, I think that's where a large portion of that belief comes from for the working class, is we believe in this system because we trade time for money.
So we kind of have to believe in it, or what the fuck is this all for?
Exactly. But the irony is once you get to big money,
big money?
Big money. Ironically, my email back in middle school was bigmoney249. I had big dreams. So when you get to big money, where you could spend $1,000 a day for the rest of eternity, 300 years, that's $1 billion. If you had $1 billion, you can spend $1,000 a day for, or is it more than that? Basically,
Probably
multiple lifetimes.
I was gonna say you would never be able to do it in your life.
It would be hard to do.
I could spend that in a day, though.
Oh, sure.
If I had to.
Yeah. But that kind of money, you don't get that by trading time for money.
You get it from stealing.
See, I'm gonna be.
See, this is where the socialists.
Right. Right. Whereas
if you're a billionaire, you've obviously fucked people over, is the consensus, right?
That's their idea. Yeah. Whereas my idea is that you've created enough value in the world. So I was kind of brought up with the idea of Jim Rohn would say, you gotta provide more
about that
value.
Yeah, my stepdad used to listen to him a little bit.
I went deep into him when I was in my pyramid scheme days. But it made sense to me. If you provide a value, somebody will pay you for it. It doesn't matter if it's dollar bills, food, water, shelter. If you provide enough value to somebody, they're gonna reward you for it. It could even be sex if you're in a relationship, or love, or whatever you put energy into. I believe.
Are you talking about like a transactional romantic relationship?
I mean, plenty of people have those, right?
I think that if both parties are willing, that's the only way to go.
I mean, in any relationship, there's a give and take, and you kind of feed the pot of the relationship together. You feed each other. There's always some sort of transaction going on. I don't think this existence works without some sort of transaction. Just like the sun provides us with light in order for us to grow our food. Without that transaction,
but what do we ever give to the sun, though?
That's why it's Jesus. It gives without any.
Were we recording when we talked about it?
No,
I didn't think
that'll be another episode. Yeah. Getting kind of off on the deep end there.
All right, well, we'll ask the next question then. Did dinosaurs exist in the way we were told?
I haven't thought about that in a while.
Have you ever gone down that rabbit hole, though?
No.
I used to think people were retarded if they thought dinosaurs didn't exist.
I could probably buy that.
You could buy that people are retarded, or
I could buy the thought that you had there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can still buy it, or
I mean, I could buy anything, right? Give me enough convincing. It's so hard to say. It does seem like they keep going back and forth of what dinosaurs look like.
Yeah, they have feathers now.
Yeah. I always found lizards and snakes fascinating, and they're supposed to be like a descendant
Well, look
of
at
dinosaurs.
chickens, man.
Chickens are crazy. One of the theories that I've heard before is that when the dinosaurs were around, in theory, there was so much CO2 in the atmosphere. And if you know anything about growing plants or weed.
Plants or weed?
All plants.
Sorry. I just thought that was funny.
So all plants use CO2 to grow. And how perfect is that? They put off oxygen, we put off CO2. But in the beginning of the Earth, in theory, at one point, maybe at another point soon, the CO2 was so high that the vegetation and therefore the animals, so everything was large because of the high concentrations of CO2. Things were just giant because they were uptaking everything.
Did they say like a dragonfly was like the size of a baseball bat, and like the bug, like I think I've seen those fossils where like a beetle is like a, you can fit it on like a pizza tray.
No thanks.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, if bugs were big, we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way we could compete with that.
I mean, we would be little scavengers, which maybe we were at one point.
So the thing that gets me, dude, is, and I don't think this is exactly hidden. It's just not out on display in the open, but you can realize it if you just look into it a little bit. But when you go to a museum, like paleontology shit, you see the skeleton of a T-Rex. There might just be one bone in there that they found, and then they replicate the rest of the animal about how they thought it looked. Like, have they ever actually found an entire fossilized velociraptor or stegosaurus? Like,
I don't know.
See, this is an episode, and I didn't put it on our list, but
that'll be one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some. It's kind of like the flat Earth people. Like, they go into it trying to disprove the dumbasses, and then they become the dumbass.
Right.
Like, oh, I wanted to prove that dinosaurs existed, and I found out that there's not a lot of evidence for it.
Scary stuff. Let's hurry up because I gotta take a piss.
Do you want to just pause it?
No, we're almost there.
Do creatures such as fairies elves and gnomes exist?
I think possibly.
I'm kind of there too.
Yeah.
It's like maybe like interdimensional travel
Exactly.
or something like that.
Yeah. Something we can't see. I mean,
Psychedelic experiences, like a lot. I mean, and I don't know if like these guys that are writing fantasy novels back in the early days
Or tripping.
Yeah. Did they trip ever before they wrote these books, or did they like hear stories? All right. Is there an active program for the cloning of humans?
Probably.
I like when you answer fast.
That means I've thought about it for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. That question I almost actually took off the list because like I've been listening to some shit where like there's these people who believe like every single famous movie star
Has a clone.
Has a clone or is just
The clone.
Is somebody they just created.
Oh,
but like I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence for Joe Biden. There's like 3 or 4 of them out there.
Could be.
Come on, give me a break, man.
Sometimes you get the sleepy one, sometimes you get the angry one, sometimes you get the one that wants to fucking sniff kids. All right. Is there... Oh, that was the... Okay. Are we existing within some type of simulation?
Possibly.
I say yes on that.
I don't know. I mean, how do we determine what a simulation is?
Exactly. Are
I
we
think
talking like
possibly.
a computer-generated one, or like even like not Aristotle, but like Plato and Socrates were talking about this demiurge, and it's basically the fucking script for the Matrix when you look into it. Like brains in a vat kind of was a big theory that was like BC times.
Yeah.
Like these people have been thinking about this for a long time.
That's an episode for sure.
All right, we're gonna cut it so Jeremiah can go take a piss.
Yeah.
And that's the end of our intro episode. So
Fun things to come further.
All right. Well, good job.
Yes. Peace.